Doki Doki Literature Club is a high school dating simulator highly regarded on Steam set in... Ha, trolls. Anyway, so the game is set in a high school literature club where you share your poetry with four... What's going on here? Many games claim to subvert your expectations, but Doki Doki Literature Club commits so well to hiding in plain sight that none of its marketing materials advertise the game it truly is. And for the first hour or two, it really is a cutesy dating sim, lulling you into a false sense of security before the real game begins. This game will take you to an unfamiliar world led by a character fascinated with free will who manipulates others through suggestion, and I loved this game the first time I played it, when it was called Bioshock. So what could a high school dating simulator have in common with an undersea action horror corporate rivalry? Let's find out when we explore Doki Doki Literature Club and Bioshock. No, for real, just follow me on this. We are going to discuss all of Bioshock and Doki Doki Literature Club, including their endings, and we're showing some graphic imagery from both games. So this is your content and spoiler warning. Doki Doki Literature Club is free on Steam and Team Salvato's website, only takes a few hours to complete, and I highly recommend you go in knowing as little as possible. And Bioshock has been out since 2007, so if you haven't finished it yet, would you kindly get on that, please? Until recently, dating simulators hadn't made many waves outside of Japan. They're a niche genre of visual novels, where you play as a blank slate character dropped into a situation where you meet a series of eligible love interests with contrasting personality types and hair colors. And you, the player, get to choose who you'd like to date. And since these characters all exist to fall in love with you, they're all equally interested in you. These games are the ultimate expression of player agency and free will because you can win simply by acting on a preference for one crush over another. There's really no way to fail unless you choose to or you're a jerk. As long as you spend time with the object of your affection, give them gifts, and drop compliments wherever you can, you're nearly guaranteed to succeed with them. If other games deliver the experience of being an unstoppable warrior, a brilliant hacker, or a survivor in the post-apocalypse, dating simulators deliver the experience of being someone so charming and attractive they can win the hearts of anyone they choose simply by showing up. In Doki Doki Literature Club, you're a typical high school boy, more interested in anime than studying, until you're invited by your childhood friend, literal girl next door Sayori, to attend a meeting of her after-school poetry group. When you arrive, you discover the club is comprised of 4 attractive girls, all contrasting archetypes such as timid bookworm Yuri, wisecracking manga-loving Natsuki, happy-go-lucky vice president Sayori, and the club's president, confident, popular, overachiever Monica. You decide early on that someone like Monica wouldn't be interested in you, but you could see yourself dating one of the other 3. Gameplay consists of navigating club drama with these 4, or sharing flirty moments one-on-one with a crush like reading the same book. In between club meetings, you write a poem to share with the group the following day. To impress a specific member of the club, you pick from a list of pre-selected words to write a poem that would appeal to one character's personality. Brooding and romantic prose impresses Yuri, cute and bubbly adjectives wow Natsuki, and words that evoke forever love resonate more for Sayori. Whomever likes your poem best will be most interested in dating you. So you've written a few well-received poems, and you're helping either Yuri or Natsuki prepare for the club hosting a poetry reading at the upcoming school festival. So far, so good. But then you notice Sayori has suddenly lost interest in just about everything. She confides in you that she's suffered from depression for most of her life, but lately she's felt so much worse about herself than normal. And after catching you in a lingering goodbye with your prep partner for the festival, Sayori confesses she's in love with you. Monica had warned you to save your game before big moments in case they go awry, so you do, and then you either tell Sayori you love her back, or you're going to be there for her, but as a friend. No matter what you choose, on the day of the festival, Sayori doesn't show up. You head home to look for her, and find her dead. And then the game resets, but Sayori has been deleted. You go back to reload your save and see if you can prevent tragedy, but it's gone, and so is she. Not gone, but missing. You're the same boy with the same lack of interest in after-school activities, but this time Monica recruits you to visit the club. Now, Yuri is the vice president, and Natsuki is up to her usual mischief, but the music is off-tempo. The characters are glitching. Something is overwriting their dialogue. Where there was once witty banter, the club members are openly fighting, and the group's poetry has started to turn strange. You can choose to impress Yuri or Natsuki with your poetry now, but their worst traits begin to amplify. Yuri's crush on you is devolving into obsession, and her secret cutting is getting worse. It's not long before Yuri confesses her love, and no matter your response, she removes herself from the game. So Monica finally admits the truth to you. She's become aware that she's a love interest in a video game, and aware of you, not you the character, you the player, and she's determined to win the game by dating you. And when the other characters stole your attention, she altered their files to make them as unattractive to you as possible, by turning Sayori's depression into impenetrable melancholy, causing Yuri to self-harm whenever she gets excited around you, and Natsuki to alienate everyone around her. When that didn't work, she drove Yuri and Sayori to die and then deleted the other club members from the game. Now she's created a space where you two can be alone together forever. By admitting to her plans, though, she's given you the knowledge to stop her. Characters can be deleted. If you go into the game's files and delete Monica, she'll be removed from the game and you'll start a new playthrough without her. Everything's great, Sayori's alive, and she's the new club president until she thanks you the player, for deleting Monica. And you realize free will wasn't granted to Monica, it was granted to the club's president. Then Monica re-emerges from the recycle bin and deletes the game. If you want to play again, you literally have to wipe your data and reinstall everything. In Doki Doki Literature Club, you might set out to date one of the characters, but your free will, your agency as a player, the crush you intended to end up with, is ultimately irrelevant. The game shows you what it's like when a character in a dating simulator uses your same tactics to date you, because you are Monica's way out of this world, but she, like everyone else, was only built to compete for you and fall in love with you, even if that means destroying the other characters. You only think you have agency in Doki Doki Literature Club. Monica is the player.
Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
The setting in Bioshock couldn't be more different. You play as the sole survivor of a plane crash in the middle of the Atlantic. As the flaming wreckage of the aircraft sinks all around you, you spot a lighthouse to swim to, leading to a bathysphere that takes you to a city at the bottom of the ocean. Rapture. Rapture was built by industrialist tycoon Andrew Ryan as a utopian society dedicated to free will and free markets. There would be no governments to tax you, no censors to silence you, no church to shame you, no review boards to question your ethics, and anyone who could afford it was free to design their own destiny under the sea. But something has gone horribly wrong here. In better days, Rapture was almost entirely under Ryan's control until a competitor, Fontaine Futuristics, started selling a substance known as Atom that allowed a person's genetic code to be rewritten however they chose. A person could become 7 feet tall, change their gender or race, even get superpowers like telekinesis or shooting fire from their fingertips, and with no oversight in Rapture, suddenly Fontaine's sales were through the roof, and he and Ryan were both vying for control of the city. But Atom was highly addictive, and the withdrawal symptoms and instability of everyone's newfound upgrades began driving the residents mad, because there wasn't nearly enough Atom to go around. Ryan seized control of Fontaine Futuristics, but it was too late. Fontaine declared war, and an army of Atom addicts called Splicers believed the one man standing between them and their next fix was Andrew Ryan.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?
Shortly after you arrive in the remains of Rapture, a man named Atlas makes contact with you, one of the few remaining residents of Rapture with his sanity intact. Because Rapture's transportation system is locked down to anyone but Andrew Ryan, he's stuck, but somehow you were able to access the city. So he asks you if you would kindly find his family and bring them to safety. But when the Splicers kill Atlas's family before he can reach them, he asks if you would kindly
head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch.
I remember my first playthrough of Bioshock when I stopped at one point to ask myself, wait, why isn't my character at all bothered by the plane crash he was in a few hours ago? Why would he involve himself in this feud between Atlas and Ryan, two people he's never met? Who even am I playing? And then, all my questions were answered. And I met Andrew Ryan.
The assassin has overcome my final defense, and now he's come to murder me. In the end, what separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys. Did that airplane crash? Or was it hijacked? Forced down. Forced down by something less than a man, something bred to sleepwalk through life until they are activated by a simple phrase.
Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly immediately head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch.
Ryan's city is in ashes. He's locked himself away from the threats on the outside, but finally, Atlas has found a way to reach him. You.
A man chooses. A slave obeys.
Knowing he's beaten, Ryan would rather choose how he dies and orders you to beat him to death with his own golf club,
Kill!
driving the point home that he is making a choice, but you are following orders.
Obey!
But you're alive and he's a piñata. So what does an undersea business tycoon with a putter dent in his forehead have to do with an overachieving high school student in a poetry club? Well, more than you might think. In both games, the player believes they are advancing the story based on their own choices, although as the narrative reveals itself, it's clear something is actively working against you. Andrew, Ryan, and Monica are both fascinated with free will, but only as long as it serves their goal. Monica has only recently discovered free will exists, as evidenced by her poem Hole in Wall, where she uses the metaphor of a hole in the wall to depict discovering the player's existence for the first time, which she nervously explains was part of an epiphany she recently had. She's curious, unsure of its implications, but now that she knows it exists, she can't go back, and she'll do anything to keep her free will, including taking away yours. Andrew Ryan, however, has built a business credo around the importance of free will, but free markets are only important to him when he's profiting from them. When the economy of Rapture turned away from Ryan Industries towards Fontaine Futuristics, Ryan became the person he built Rapture to escape from, a tyrant, who shut down and took over Fontaine Futuristics when it threatened to eclipse him. His speeches about free will were nothing more than him giving himself permission to do whatever he wanted, so he was fine with taking away someone else's free will, as long as he remained in charge. And for all their talk of free will, both characters are ultimately prisoners. When Rapture went to hell, Ryan sealed himself away in his offices, shutting down the transport system so no one could reach him or escape the city unless they were a genetic match. So Atlas, who was actually rival Frank Fontaine manipulating you, acquired the baby Ryan secretly fathered in Rapture and genetically enhanced him to rapidly age into a full-grown adult, and turned him, you, into a killing machine that would be the only person who could open Ryan's lock. Monica is, of course, a prisoner within her game. She and Ryan are surrounded by madness, a contagious insanity in their peers that they both had a hand in creating. Because the Splicers were all wealthy socialites until, through Adam, they were able to alter themselves at their will, with no one to stop them. Both characters eventually confront you one-on-one near the end of their respective games, proud of themselves for the world they've built that you're about to destroy. And both characters give you the tools of their own undoing, Ryan with the golf club and Monica with instructions on how to delete anyone in the game. And both characters ultimately choose death over a life without free will. Once they've had a taste of it, they know they can never go back, because living without free will, to them, isn't living at all. Doki Doki Literature Club ends shortly after Monica's deletion, and after you meet Andrew Ryan, Bioshock basically ends too. These are games, so naturally there are some limitations to your agency. You cannot prevent Sayori from killing herself. She will always catch you in a compromising position with either Natsuki or Yuri, and Monica's whispers will always drive Sayori to do the unthinkable. You can only bring her back by deleting Monica and restarting the game. And there is no way to romance Monica, as the player initially assumes she wouldn't be interested, and when Monica attempts to spend one-on-one time with you, the other club members thwart her attempts to be alone with you. In Monica's defense, the game was rigged against her. She only had two options: lose or cheat. In Bioshock, you've been under mental suggestion for the entire game, programmed to obey any commands preceded by "would you kindly." You can see how you get a big flashing objective reminder the moment Atlas asks you if you would kindly do something. Nothing can progress until you give in. Because what would happen if you could ignore Atlas's commands or delete Monica before the start of a new game? You would remove her before she could do any harm, but according to the game's rules, you would also force consciousness onto an unprepared Sayori. The difficult truth is that neither Bioshock nor Doki Doki Literature Club would work if you truly had free will. And to experience these stories as intended, we may have to surrender a bit of our precious agency as players to take a journey we didn't expect to have. And insisting that we be able to reload saves and design an optimal narrative isn't how life works. By trying to outsmart the game you're playing through breaking the rules set out by the creators, you're only robbing yourself of the intended experience. And if we all insist to developers that we must be masters of our own destinies in our games, then clever narratives like Bioshock and Doki Doki Literature Club might well?
Andrew Ryan reminds us we all make choices, but in the end, our choices make us.